Now, the amount of money that rate hike would generate, and even what the percentage of that rate hike is still part of an active negotiation between the city right now.
It's hard to believe that what you're looking at here on the ground is what actually remains of the third floor of a rental property. That entire floor and the attic and everything in it thrown across. Some houses spared, but for others, this is what their fate is looking like today. And you can see up to 30-mile-per-hour winds and only getting stronger. Those winds and the high tide blowing away my hat, but also blowing the water up out of the bayside and into these side streets. Here at Delaware State University, an Olympian is about to make his world debut in Germany for the Special Olympics. His name is Brian Perry, and his family, his coaches, and his peers say he is the perfect representation of that Hornet pride. Here in Ocean City, you can see some of those physical steps that have been taken to protect people. That's everything from this fence that you can see over my right-hand shoulder here to some of those pedestrian walkways you can see over here on my left. In fact, they're freshly repainted for this year, but officials tell me as important as those steps are, even more important is that people interact with them the right way. Now, Democrats tell me the budget for this year is safe and won't be changed. Meanwhile, Republicans say that it's even the spending in that budget that has them worried about future expenses.
This is an anchor bolt that literally got pulled out and brought over 200 feet across the field and landed in this yard.
After last night's storm, residents and businesses are surveying the damage.
And here in Salisbury at the Halo Bargain Center, they saw some of that damage firsthand. First, it was a transformer across the street catching on fire. Then 20 minutes later, their own offices filled with smoke. That's why you can see that fan here this morning, airing it out and hoping to return business later in the day.
The smoke was pouring out of the walls, so just to be safe, we did shut down.
But the worst of the damage from last night's storm here in Harrington, Delaware. You can see the barn behind me, the entire roof lifted into the air and thrown across the street into the neighbor's yard and into their house. 4x4s and cinder blocks striking the home. The family inside say they got the alert on their phone and they're lucky they got inside as fast as they did.
His roof got picked up and just projectiled into my house. I looked across the field and I saw it coming. It looked like just a white wall of water.
The event that caused it, known as a microburst. 47 ABC's chief meteorologist Rich Wurzik was on the scene and tells us winds could have been above 80 miles per hour.
What we had out here is a microburst. It's basically straight line winds that come out of the thunderstorm and essentially plow into the ground and spread out as they do so. Very similar to the strength of a tornado.
The Morehouses today thankful they heeded the severe weather warning and got everyone inside.
It was very important because when we got that alert, we had 3 kids in the pool out back. So if we would have just ignored it, they would have been in that pool when this storm and the lightning came through. Because if we didn't act on it, maybe some of the kids are in the hospital or worse.
Rob Flaks, 47 ABC, WMDT. Representative Andy Harris Wednesday visiting Hooper's Island to a crab picking house that this year was lucky enough to get the workers they need, which means crab meat like this is going to distributors and local restaurants, boosting the economy. But he says they're one of the lucky ones and the whole system needs an overhaul.
At this point, we're so many years into this process that they're probably all within a year or two of just calling it quits. These are small family-run businesses. They live from year to year. And again, look, I'm glad A.E. Phillips could keep this place closed for 2 years and still stay in business. But again, the house down the road couldn't.
U.S. Representative Andy Harris says 2 bills he's working on would change that stark reality. Among them, a seafood industry-wide exemption to the H-2B visa worker cap and a returning worker exemption aimed at giving more picking houses what A. Phillips is calling a lucky break, enough workers to open up for the season.
2 out of the last 4 years, there's been no income coming through here. Your debt doesn't stop, your overhead doesn't stop, so it's a big relief.
A lot of companies, their workers come here year after year, the vast majority of them, 70, 80, sometimes 90%. So they could count on those workers from one year to the next, and that means we wouldn't have for sale signs up on the packing houses.
Representative Harris says it's a way of sidestepping the nationwide visa cap for the industry and disarming what picking houses are calling a game of Russian roulette. They play every year to see if they can stay open.
What other business do you operate where you don't know whether you're going to have employees from year to year.
This is not a large number of workers, but a lot of American workers depend upon these industries. And again, we could go through all the examples, but we need temporary foreign workers in the United States. Right now, the cap quota is 66,000. That's clearly inadequate. We need probably at least twice that many, maybe 3 times that many.
Now, Representative Harris says he wants to make sure the workers you can see behind me would be exempt from that 60,000 national cap. He says the 2 bills working through the U.S. Senate could make that permanent solution a reality. In Hoopers Island, Flaks, 47 ABC, WMDT. Delaware is projecting to be down about $184 million worth of tax revenue for 2025. Now, Democrats tell me the budget for this year is safe and won't be changed. Meanwhile, Republicans say that it's even the spending in that budget that has them worried about future expenses.
You know, just trying to keep my colleagues from, creating too much spending.
That's how some Delaware lawmakers are reacting to a projected $184 million decline in state revenue for the next fiscal year. Democratic leaders, including co-chair of Joint Finance Committee Senator Trey Party, says many lawmakers were disappointed when their bills weren't budgeted, but it means that what was put in is likely to stay.
We have already done budget markup, and the budget at this point is closed. We are not going to be adding any new programs or any new pieces of legislation that have large fiscal notes, unless, of course, the leadership tells me that that's what they really want to do. But
Senator Party says this includes measures like the tenant rights bill, but not probation reform. The measure with a $34 million note that's expected to go up.
Right, and so we do need to be careful about creating new programs or expanding existing programs because in the closing weeks of the legislative session that we're dealing with now, if we have folks who are trying to put things into the budget or trying to create programs that have recurring expenses, it could make things even more difficult next year or 2 years down the road when we're working on those budgets.
But Republicans say even the spending that is part of the budget has them worried.
I did not support a lot of things in the proposed budget that increased new expenses because I think we have commitments to take care of current expenses. There's a lot of legislation coming through right now. It's coming to appropriations because it's new money and a new spend, and it's millions.
Representative Ruth Briggs King, who sits on both the Finance and Appropriations Committee, says she's seen rising costs firsthand. She tells us she wants to be sure that the new spending in the budget doesn't impact commitments to teachers' pay or affordable housing.
The problem is it's not just this year, it increases next year. And so if you have declining revenues, you certainly can't pass legislation that's going to increase in 25 and 26 projected increases. You have to look very closely at the future impact as well.
Now, there is one final projection that the state has to make for this year's budget. It's set to be released on Friday, and that will be the final call on what is or isn't in the budget. Now, Senator Trey Party tells us the budget is closed. The books are closed. Nothing else is changing, but he can't finalize that call until that projection comes out on Friday. Reporting live in Dover, Flaks, 47 ABC, WMDT. Here at Delaware State University, an Olympian is about to make his world debut in Germany for the Special Olympics. His name is Brian Perry, and his family, his coaches, and his peers say he is the perfect representation of that Hornet pride.
This was just so awesome when we received the phone call from Special Olympics Delaware that they had chosen him to swim and go to Berlin. We were actually in tears. It was so moving.
He's really, really great. He's very charismatic and just a great person. I'm really happy to see him going off into the Special Olympics. It's a really awesome thing to have some Del State representative.
I'm all the way.
In an event at DSU Thursday, Brian's coach Marcus Johnson rolled out the red carpet for his star athlete, singing his praises and celebrating the work they've put in to be part of Team USA.
His times are ranking in the top 5 of 50 freestyle and 25 breaststroke. So he has that chance to really bring home a medal, have a good race, instill things that have been taught to him. He should be able to do it.
Or to hear Brian tell it,
Stay safe, stay healthy, eat right, swim fast, out of the talker.
Brian says he's grateful to his parents for all their support and Coach Johnson for bringing him to the Olympic level. His coach says those other athletes aren't ready for what he's set to bring to the Berlin Games held in Germany this June.
Oh, they better watch out. Brian's coming through. Brian's coming through.
And Brian is all smiles about it.
I'm a very happy guy.
Now, Brian tells me he's going to be keeping his coach's words at heart and his family in mind as he hits the water. In Dover, Rob Flaks, 47 ABC, WMDT.